In the heart of the rugged wilderness, a prospector named Jake made his living by searching for gold. The sun beat down on him as he trudged through the dusty trails, his weathered hat shielding his eyes from its harsh glare. Clad in tattered clothes and worn boots, he was a man shaped by the land, tough but kind-hearted. For weeks, he had ventured deep into the mountains, hoping to strike it rich, but so far, his efforts had yielded little more than a few glimmers of promise. Jake was used to solitude, the only sounds accompanying him were the rustling leaves and the distant cries of birds. He found comfort in the silence, but even the most seasoned prospector could feel lonely at times. His days were spent digging, panning, and dreaming of golden opportunities, while nights were filled with quiet reflections by a small campfire. As he packed up his meager belongings one morning and prepared to move to another spot that might hold fortune, he couldn't shake a feeling of unease. There were whispers in the wind, like an adventure waiting just around the bend. Little did Jake know that his life was about to change forever when he stumbled upon a lost cowgirl in need, a chance encounter that would test his character and lead him into an unexpected story filled with danger and friendship. As Jake ventured deeper into the wilderness, a faint sound caught his attention, a soft whimper, like that of a lost animal. Curious and concerned, he followed the noise through a dense thicket of trees. Pushing aside branches, he soon stumbled into a small clearing bathed in dappled sunlight. There, sitting on a fallen log, was a young cowgirl, her face streaked with dirt and worry. "Oh, thank goodness," she exclaimed when she saw him. "I thought I might never find anyone." Her name was Clara, and her horse had bolted while they were riding through the hills. Alone and frightened, she had wandered off the trail searching for help. Jake quickly noticed the exhaustion in her eyes and the bruises forming on her arms from the thorny bushes she had pushed through. "You look like you could use some water," he said kindly, reaching for his canteen. He had little left, but sharing it felt right. As she gratefully accepted his offering, Jake felt a warmth spread through him at the sight of her relief. Clara shared stories of her family's ranch and how she'd been trying to find her way home. As they spoke, Jake realized that their meeting was more than mere chance, it was an opportunity to connect with someone outside his lonely world. Little did they know how their fates would intertwine in ways neither could imagine. As Clara gratefully accepted the water, Jake noticed how her tense posture relaxed a little. She took small sips, clearly parched from her ordeal. "Thank you so much," she said, wiping her brow with the back of her hand. "I thought I was going to be lost forever." Jake nodded, feeling a sense of pride in helping her. "It's the least I could do," he replied, trying to keep the conversation light. He was aware that his canteen was nearly empty, sharing it had been a gamble, but seeing Clara's relief made it worthwhile. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over them as they sat together in the clearing. As they talked more about their lives, Jake learned that Clara came from a family of ranchers who valued courage and loyalty. He shared tales of his own life as a prospector, filled with both hardship and humor. Laughter came easily between them, and for the first time in a long while, Jake felt a sense of belonging wash over him. Clara's laughter reminded him of simpler days. For Jake, sharing his last canteen represented more than just an act of kindness, it symbolized trust and friendship forming in the face of uncertainty. As night began to blanket the sky with stars, he couldn't shake the feeling that their meeting had sparked something meaningful, an adventure that would lead them both down a path they had never expected to travel together. As night settled in, the air cooled, and the stars began to twinkle above like diamonds scattered across black velvet. Jake and Clara decided to stoke the campfire, its warm glow casting flickering shadows around the clearing. They sat on opposite sides, grateful for the light and the comforting crackle of the flames. Clara shared stories of her life on the ranch, painting vivid pictures of wide-open plains and galloping horses. She spoke of her brothers, who were as adventurous as they were protective, often getting into mischief that left her laughing. Jake listened intently, captivated by her tales and the sparkle in her eyes. In return, he recounted his own escapades as a prospector, full of mishaps and near misses while chasing after elusive gold. He described how he once tumbled down a steep slope, only to discover a hidden stream filled with shimmering stones. Clara laughed heartily at his funny misadventures, feeling more at ease with each passing moment. As they grew comfortable with each other, an unexpected friendship unfolded under the blanket of stars. They found joy in their shared laughter and felt a bond deepen that neither had anticipated when they first met. For Jake, this night was not just about survival, it was about human connection in a world where he often felt alone. Clara's presence brought light to his heart, and as they shared stories by the fire, both felt a spark of hope for what lay ahead on their winding paths. The morning sun peeked over the horizon, casting a golden light through the trees and gently waking Jake. He stretched and blinked away the remnants of sleep, feeling content after a night filled with laughter and newfound friendship. He glanced over at Clara, still resting peacefully by the fire, her auburn hair shimmering like rays of sunlight. But his peaceful moment was abruptly shattered. Suddenly, a sharp noise broke through the tranquil morning air, the sound of thudding hooves and shouting voices. Startled, Jake sprang to his feet, heart racing as he turned toward the commotion. To his shock, he saw 3 rugged men riding into the clearing, their expressions grim. Clara's brothers had come searching for her, their anger palpable as they drew closer. "Clara! Are you all right?" one of them yelled as they dismounted hastily. Jake's stomach twisted at the sight of the men holding ropes, realizing they looked ready for confrontation. The atmosphere shifted from warmth to hostility in an instant. "Who's this?" another brother sneered, pointing accusingly at Jake. Clara stirred awake, confusion crossing her face as she realized what was happening. The horror of it sunk in, the possibility that her simple act of trust could lead to danger for Jake overwhelmed her. As tension filled the clearing, Jake sensed he needed to defend himself and explain before things escalated beyond control. "Who are you, and what have you done to Clara?" one of the brothers shouted, his voice filled with accusation. Jake could see the fury in their eyes, and he felt a wave of anxiety wash over him. He quickly raised his hands in a gesture of peace, trying to show that he meant no harm. "I'm just a prospector who found her lost in the woods," he explained, his voice steady despite the tension. The brothers exchanged glances, their faces hardening with skepticism. "And you expect us to believe that?" another brother sneered, stepping closer. "She's been missing for hours. You could have hurt her." Clara finally sat up, rubbing sleep from her eyes and sensing the rising conflict. "No. You don't understand," she interjected, her voice shaky but firm. "Jake helped me when I was lost and scared. He shared his water with me and kept me safe." Her words hung in the air, but the brothers were not easily swayed. The misunderstanding deepened as they struggled to reconcile Clara's account with their protective instincts. Jake could feel their hostility radiating like heat from a forge. His heart raced as he realized that Clara's trust in him was at stake. "I promise you, I would never hurt her," Jake said earnestly, locking eyes with each brother in turn. The tense standoff hung between them, and it became clear that unless they reached an understanding soon, things could spiral out of control fast. Jake took a deep breath, his heart pounding as he scanned the tense faces of Clara's brothers. He needed to make them understand that he was no threat. "Listen," he began, his voice firm but calm. "I found Clara wandering alone in the woods. She was scared and needed help. I gave her my water and made sure she was safe until morning." The brothers exchanged doubtful glances, their expressions still hard, but Jake pressed on. "You have to believe me, I've lived in these parts long enough to know how dangerous the wilderness can be. I would never hurt her. I have very little to offer in this world, but honesty is one thing I value." One brother stepped forward, eyes narrowing. "How do we know you're telling the truth? You could be lying to cover yourself." Jake felt a wave of frustration but didn't let it show. "Ask Clara," he insisted, turning his gaze to her as she watched nervously from behind her brothers. "She knows I didn't want anything from her except to help." Clara, sensing the weight of his words, stepped forward slightly. "They're right to be worried about me," she said softly, "but Jake did keep me safe. He shared his last canteen, and we talked through the night." Her support seemed to soften the brothers' expressions just a bit, but Jake knew they were still on edge. It was clear that building trust would take more than words. He was determined to show them that he was a friend, not an enemy. The tension in the clearing hung thick like fog, but Clara's support began to change the atmosphere. Her brothers, still wary, exchanged glances filled with uncertainty. "If what you say is true," one of them finally spoke, his voice steadier, "then why didn't you come to find us?" Jake understood their concern and took a step forward, keeping his tone respectful. "I didn't know she was missing until we spoke. I wanted to keep her safe until it was light enough to search for you together." Clara nodded vigorously. "He didn't leave my side at all, he was kind to me when I really needed it." Slowly, the brothers' expressions softened as they processed Clara's words. The protective instincts that had driven them to confront Jake began to wane as they realized he had acted out of goodwill. "All right," the oldest brother said reluctantly, lowering the rope he had been holding. "We'll give you the benefit of the doubt." Jake felt a rush of relief wash over him, but he knew trust would take time to build. "Thank you for understanding," he replied sincerely. "I promise I only want what's best for Clara." The air shifted as the brothers finally relaxed their stances, and Clara stepped closer to Jake, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Let's head back home together," she suggested with a smile, and with that simple statement, they began to walk toward the future, one where friendships could flourish and misunderstandings were left behind in the wilderness. As they began their walk back home, Clara walked beside Jake, a newfound warmth between them. The morning sun filtered through the trees, illuminating their path and casting gentle shadows that seemed to dance around them. Clara's brothers chatted quietly, still cautious but visibly more relaxed as they exchanged glances with Jake that hinted at acceptance. "Thank you for being brave enough to help me," Clara said softly, nudging Jake's arm playfully. "I'll always remember this adventure." Jake smiled, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. "I'm just glad you're safe now," he replied. "You showed courage too, wandering alone like that." The siblings listened as Clara recounted parts of their journey, laughter mingling with the sounds of nature around them. They no longer saw Jake as a stranger but as someone who had stood by their sister when she needed it most. As they neared the ranch, the landscape opened up to reveal rolling hills and sprawling fields. Clara's brothers began to discuss plans for a family gathering, inviting Jake to join them for dinner as a gesture of friendship. "You'll have to tell us more about your adventures in prospecting," one brother said with a grin. Jake felt a surge of joy at the invitation, realizing that this experience had forged an unlikely bond, a friendship rooted in trust and shared stories. This was not just an ordinary day, it marked the start of something special, weaving together their lives in unexpected ways that would lead to many more adventures ahead. As they approached the ranch, Jake felt a deep sense of reflection wash over him. The day had unfolded in ways he could never have anticipated, starting with a simple act of kindness that led to an adventure and a new friendship. He thought about how sharing his last canteen of water had not only helped Clara but had also brought him closer to her family. In the midst of the challenges they faced, he realized that kindness had the power to break down barriers and transform misunderstandings into trust. Clara's brothers had come ready for confrontation, yet through honesty and support, they found common ground. This experience reminded Jake that even in the wilderness, where loneliness often accompanied him, one small gesture could lead to meaningful connections. As they reached the ranch, laughter floated through the air from family members preparing for dinner. Clara turned to Jake with a bright smile. "You're part of this now," she said, her eyes shining with warmth. He felt grateful not just for their acceptance but for the reminder that compassion is a universal language. Jake understood that life would continue to throw challenges his way, but he now carried with him the knowledge that kindness could light up even the darkest paths. He looked forward to many more adventures ahead with Clara and her family, realizing that sometimes it takes a single moment of generosity to change everything for the better.